Gold prices hit another record high after fresh U.S. data spurs Federal Reserve cut expectations. Federal government says all issues affecting national identification number upload for trade grant scheme resolve. Plus, oil holds onto gains as investors bet on tighter supply. The program is Business Express, reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. I am Musa Abubakar, your guide. Now let's bring you up to speed with business development. The federal government says it has resolved the technical problems related to the uploading of the national identification number for participants in the Presidential Conditional Grant Program, also known as the Trade Grant Scheme. The Presidential Conditional Grant Program is an initiative directed at nano businesses under the Presidential Palliative Program. The scheme offers a grant of 50,000 per beneficiary, aiming to support 1 million nano businesses across the 774 local government. A Minister of Trade and Investment, Doris Anita, says the scheme scheduled to start on March 9, 2024, faced delays because of technical difficulties in uploading applicants' national identification number to the initiative's portal, given the latest update on the grant program. And it is said all technical issues have been resolved, thereby thanking the applicants for their patience. Well, Central Bank of Nigeria has raised its capital requirement for commercial, merchant and non-interest banks in Nigeria to maintain a safe, sound and stable banking system. In the recent circular sent to all banks and signed by Director of Financial Policy and Regulations Department of the bank, Haruna Mustafa, indicates that commercial banks with international authorization are to meet the minimum requirement of 500 billion naira, 200 billion naira for national bank, 50 billion naira for regional and merchant banks, while 20 billion naira and 10 billion naira were set for non-interest banks and at national and regional levels. The Apex Bank says all banks are required to meet the minimum capital requirement within 24 months starting from April 1st, 2024 to 31st March 2026. The move is said to be in line with Section 9 of the Banks and Other Financial Institutions Act, both year 2020. And our discussion today is focused on banking recapitalization by Central Bank of Nigeria and why Nigerian banks have compelling need to recapitalize. With me to discuss this is Dr. Chijoke Kichiku, MD, CEO, Dignity Finance and Investment Limited. You're welcome to Business Express.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, to begin our conversation on why banks directed to recapitalize, well, it's very important we actually talk about that. Well, despite the fact that the CBN governor recently said the banks are somehow safe, sound, and stable. Why do we need to recapitalize?
It became necessary to recapitalize banks, knowing that the value of our currency today has been so reduced. Exchange rates has made the capital base of banks to have very low value compared to international standards. And of course, we are operating in a global market. And so when you see the value of the capital base of commercial banks in Nigeria, based on the current exchange rate, we are just nowhere. And so to imagine that there is no bank in Nigeria that that is ranked first to 10 in Africa is embarrassing to this country. So you see that the need for capitalization became necessary, especially now that we have exchange rate that is as high as above 1,000 naira per dollar. So it enables banks, it will just enable banks to be able to expand their frontiers, the frontiers of their businesses, and to be able to do better funding of transactions that can actually not threaten their existence. Today you see that a lot of banks shy away from certain transactions just because they have long tenure and maybe because of the volume of business. But once they are recapitalized, they'll be able to handle bigger transactions and transactions with heavier funds and longer tenure. So that is just why it is necessary. And again, you see that a lot of, because we are just having to do a lot of fintech transactions, banks actually need more funding to be able to fund whatever thing that will be required to expand the capacity of their fintech capabilities.
Okay. Well, 500 billion for banks with international authorization, while 200 billion for national banks. Is it a mountain to climb?
It is a mountain to fly because even as big or as high as 500 billion naira looks, when you actually convert that amount in dollars, it's only giving you about $417 million,
okay, compared
to the kind of capital base of probably the biggest bank in Africa, the Standard Bank Group, that has about up to $14 billion as capital base. And so if you compare 417 million to 14 $1 billion is a far cry. It's actually, the gap is so much. So we need to actually come close to how big other banks are in Africa so that we can even come up to first 10 in ranking. That way we will be able to beat our chest to say we are doing well.
Okay, for that to happen, what do we need to do?
I honestly expect that the government, the CBN will encourage inflow of foreign currency into the country to be able to fund this for two reasons. It will bring a lot of liquidity that is lacking in that foreign currency area. Again, of course, when that happens, you see that we're going to have more revenue to be able to fund the foreign currency demand. The second thing it will do is the fact that foreign direct investment will just increase in Nigeria, and we're going to have that. So that, and when that happens, it will be easy to fund some of the transactions we have today in foreign currency. And again, we need to expand the frontiers. We need to expand the frontiers of our business so that, but if it is done in foreign currency, it will be in our interest to do so. And so that we expect a CBN to encourage foreign direct investment coming in that area to be able to have funding for our lack of depleted revenue from that area.
Okay, are we likely to see more of mergers and takeover, or are we likely to see a lot of the banks go into the equities market to move for this or to meet up their capital requirements?
Okay, when this happened in 2004 and 2005, a lot of mergers took place, a lot of acquisitions took place. We also saw a few banks that went the whole hog to increase the size of their capital base. But of course, moving from where we are now to 500 billion naira is not an easy jump. And so we expect a lot of mergers to happen. And but I can tell you that a lot of banks are already making efforts to recapitalize themselves, because the signals that this was going to happen, the signals were there. So they already went ahead to start making all the efforts to recapitalize. But I know that a lot of them may not be able to do it alone, so mergers will happen. Some other banks may also want to reduce their size, maybe move from international to national, or move from national to regional, in order for them to meet this requirement. And I see that it is possible that there may be some acquisitions. Unfortunately, when this happens, certain things happen also. The other flip side, which is the fact that a lot of people may lose their jobs, because when banks merge, you see that many functions are duplicated, and so some people may have to lose their jobs, and those are the other disadvantage of this. But the positive side of it is going to make our financial system more stable and stronger to do better business and more business.
Okay, after all is said and done, where will our banks be in terms of financial services and investor confidence?
When this happens, you see that a lot of services are going to be included in whatever that is being offered right now. When it happened, like I said, the last time it happened in 2005, a lot of banks had more capabilities to actually expand their ICT areas. More branches at that time happened. But of course, today, in the kind of banking we're doing today, we don't even need all those branches, number of branches to expand. What we need is a bigger capability in fintech, so that we can render more and more services without having to move from one point to another. So we expect that there will be more capacity to handle all those fintech transactions. Recall that at the time there was this need for fintech transactions when people couldn't do a lot of physical cash movements. When the new Naira was being introduced, we saw the jamming of fintech areas of banks to the extent that they couldn't carry the capacity of the number of people that wanted fintech transactions. So this is going to be a window for them to expand that capacity and capability to be able to handle more. And of course, look at other areas of financial services they can actually include in the services they render.
Okay, how well positioned is the equities market in providing the right platform for banks to achieve their recapitalization objective?
I can tell you we have one of the best equities market in Africa. They have been positioned, they have been there before, they did it before, and a lot of asset management companies are there trying to take advantage of this opportunity to get people, either through a public offering or private placement. Of course, many of them may still go for private placement. There may be rights issues if the shareholders actually still have money to bring in. So we expect that the market is okay, ready for it. Like I said, we have a good number of very qualified institutions to handle this kind of merger or this kind of increase that's going to happen. We have one of the best in Africa.
Okay. What challenges or obstacles do you foresee in the implementation of this?
Usually when this kind of thing happens, a lot of disagreements between one board or the other. A lot of, let me not call it, a lot of figures are going to be imagined that are either not exactly what they are supposed to look like in order for certain institutions to look good or better than others. You know, so certain disagreements are going to happen. When we see one board of directors, another set of board of directors thinking they don't want to lose their positions and their equity holding, you see that it's going to bring some disagreements, and probably some litigations may happen. Again, if those happen, you see that some banks may actually drop completely and not exist again if they cannot cope with the entire thing. But of course, there's no threat to that, because once you are no longer able to handle this, some investors are able to take you over and bring in more funds to take you over. So I don't think there's any threat to share deposit holdings of customers who have their banks in these banks. Okay. And so there shouldn't be any threat to funds that are already existing in banks.
Okay. Now, an additional 200 basis points was somehow added to the interest rate at the end of the Monetary Policy Committee meeting, making cost of borrowing higher. Where do small-scale enterprises turn to for credit with high cost of operation as well?
Well, I agree, obviously, that it is a problem for small and middle scale entrepreneurs because the cost of borrowing today has been heavily increased because of the high rate of NPR. But again, there are some other options. The options of the development institutions like BOI. Okay. BOI again will always be there to give interest rates that are not as high as commercial bank rates.
But where do they get their own money from?
Well, you know, that's why they are a development bank. Okay. Development bank because they are not following the rates of NPR, okay, and they are giving those funds from CBN and other sources to be able to at lower rates, okay, not just like subsidized rates, given to them. So they're able to use it to grow the economy, and people can come and borrow from there to do their own businesses. So if commercial banks rates are high for a certain set of people, they can actually try some development banks like BOI and others.
Okay. Now, with the reforms that we have seen, and we've started to see a kind of improvement. We've seen the forex market is gradually stabilizing, but that has not impacted on prices yet. When do we get to see that?
Okay, so for us to imagine, for what we are seeing today as an improvement in the forex market, we need to identify what that are causing that. And of course, we also know that there are some other things that are impacting on prices of goods and services, not just the foreign FS rate. Of course. We know that the cost of production is high, coming from the cost of running your generator, and we know today the national grid is having issues. Yeah. So a lot of people are depending on their generators and other alternative sources of energy. So when we do that, you see that cost of production is still going to be high, cost of doing business is still going to remain high, not just only on FX. So we expect that over time, maybe in the next few months, as the exchange rate continues to go down, it will start bringing down prices. If every other thing improves, like I mentioned, if the cost of energy, power, if they all improve, then we're expecting to have reduction in prices of goods and services.
Dr. Chijioke Ikechukwu, it's a pleasure having you on the program. It's always been a pleasure having you.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure too. Thank you.
Okay. Now moving on, let's head to energy market where oil prices edged down slightly on Monday, holding on to most of their recent gains amid expectations of tighter supply from OPEC Plus cuts, attacks on Russian refineries, and upbeat Chinese manufacturing data. Brent crude fell 17 cents or 0.2% to $86.83 a barrel after rising 2.4% last week. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude was at $83.06 a barrel, down 11 cents or 0.1% following a 3.2% gain last week. Trade volumes are expected to be seen on Monday as several countries are closed for Easter holiday. Now gold hits fresh all-time peak as U.S. data lifts June rate cut hopes. Let's see how other commodities. The Nigerian identity for national development has satisfactory noting that Nigeria Identity Management Commission, NIMC, is making progress under the project. NIMC is expected to have issued the national identification number to 148 million Nigerians by June 2024. As of December 2023, data released by the Commission showed that 104.16 million Nigerians had been issued NIN, representing 70% of the target. The World Bank, in its latest implementation report on the project published on March 29, 2024, said NIMC is making satisfactory progress. Now let's join Bossade, where she'll give us a kind of brief on the weekly activities on the NGX market.
The market opened for 4 trading days last week as the federal government of Nigeria declared March 29th and Monday 1st April 2024 as public holidays to commemorate Easter celebration. Meanwhile, the NGX all-share index and market capitalization depreciated by 0.08% to close the week at 104,562.06 basis points and 59.1 trillion naira. All other indices finished higher, with the exception of NGX Main Board, NGX 30, NGX Consumer Goods, and NGX Growth, which depreciated, while the NGX Oil and Gas and NGX Sovereign Bond indices closed flat. At a turnover of 1.8 billion shares worth 52 billion naira in 38,550 deals was traded in the week by investors on the floor of the exchange. The financial services industry led the activity chart with 1.3 billion shares valued at 32.9 billion naira traded in 20,897 deals. The conglomerate industry followed with 106.7 million shares worth 1.4 billion naira in 2,368 deals. The third place was the consumer goods industry with a turnover of 87.7 million shares worth 4.2 billion in 4,731 deals. Trading in the top 3 equities, Guarantee Trust Holding Company, Zenith Bank PLC, and Access Holding, they jointly accounted for 589.9 million shares valued at 23.2 billion naira in 8,166 deals. A total of 20,189 units of exchange-traded products, ETP, valued at 11.3 million naira, were traded in the week in 210 deals, as well as a total of 61,447 units of federal government bonds valued at 60.2 million naira were traded in 27 deals. 40 equities appreciated in price during the week, 31 equities depreciated in price, while 83 equities remained unchanged. Bossade Able, Business Express.
Well, as Business Express returns on Tuesday by 9:30 a.m. Thanks for watching. Do have a beautiful day.